it occurred to me while Steve was talking that if I didn't do a good job telling you about the 3 different businesses that these women own, their answers could be really comical if you got them confused. So pay attention, and when I introduce you, raise your hand just so people understand what your business is as you answer the questions. So first, I'm going to introduce Denise Einkauf, who is owner and president of Waggin Tails Pet Spa in Fulshear, Texas. And then we have Lillian Werbin, who is CEO and co-owner of Elderly Instruments in Lansing, Michigan. And we have Drayna, who is Events and Community Engagement Coordinator at Shakopee Brewhall in Shakopee, Minnesota. So to be clear, we have a pet ranch. Sorry. We have a pet ranch and spa, we have a music and instruments store, and we have a brew hall and coffee house. So I just thought their answers could become comical if you didn't know what they do. So Caitlin, starting with you, tell us about your brew hall and specifically how, oh, I forgot to tell you what we're talking about. So sorry about that. We are talking about building a community around your business. So that's specifically what we're focusing on. You guys really include the community and kind of determining, you know, what your offerings are and your events. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Shakopee Brewhall opened in 2017 as a brewery in historical downtown Shakopee. And when our owners were kind of creating their business plan, they really wanted to create a space for the Shakopee community to gather, share a beer. We have a slogan, share more than a beer, and that's really kind of what drives all of our decision making when it comes to distribution, planning events in our tap room. And then in the past year and a half, we opened our coffee shop side, and that's really allowed us to expand on those offerings that we're able to do, the events that we plan, and the people that come into our space.
I think it really ties into what we heard earlier from April about asking your customers, because you're really baking that into your business plan. So Lillian, coming to you, Elderly Instruments, Lansing, Michigan, been around since 1972, founded by your family before you. You also really, community is a huge part of your businesses, which is part of the reason we chose all of you to be our finalists. So tell us about how community is really integrated into your company.
Well, Elderly started in 1972, as you said, by my father and his at the time partner. And it was a 2-person shop with 10 instruments and quickly grew to where we are now, which is 36,000 square feet of music and people who love it. And ultimately, the scale to that point was musicians who love instruments, who love music, who love to play with one another. And as they have a lifetime of music in their lives, they share that with us, and vice versa. We're able to support them throughout their lifetime as a musician.
Now, Denise, you really have 2 communities. You have your 4-legged community, and then you have their pet parents. Tell us a little bit about how your pet ranch is different than many, and really how do you build that community around it?
So Waggin Tails, we started in 2005. How we're very different, and we actually live on property. We're on 15 acres, so we are truly a ranch. So our family is there, the family's involved. We had to take, like you said, we always joke if the dogs could drive themselves there, you know, we would only have to have one type of client, but pets are part of the family. So we have grown to 14,000 square feet. We keep about 200 dogs a night. We do boarding, grooming, daycare, and training. So a lot of what we've done is expanded over the 18 years, and that's because pets are part of the family, so you have to make yourself part of the family as well. So we've become truly a family, all-inclusive, try to have the whole community involved. So.
One of the things I was saying to someone just earlier today is that I love covering small business because you don't actually really need to know anything about business, because small businesses, so much of it is emotional and about human connection. So I'm going to ask each of you a kind of a question on that topic. I'll go to you again, Denise. You're really appealing to an emotional side of your customer. This is emotional for them. They're not choosing you. You may not be the cheapest. You may not be the closest. Can you talk about the importance of connecting with your clients, your human clients, emotionally, and in a way, I think, that everyone can relate to, no matter what kind of business they're in?
Right, so with us, it is a very different type of business. Number one, we have to build trust. And if the people don't trust us, they're not gonna leave their family with us. So it does take consistency from the ground up. I mean, all of our employees, we have 55 employees right now, but everybody is trained that we have to all think that pet is part of our family when they stay there, because they're part of the family that drops off. So it is a hard business because it's 365 days a year. The pets don't care if it's Thanksgiving Day. We can't be closed, we have to be down and work. So you have to build a workforce that's loyal. You have to build trust with your community, with your clients, because they are leaving their family. The pet industry in 18 years has changed a lot. It's not a dog anymore, your pets are family. So that's what we focus on, and build in that loyalty and that trust.
You mentioned your employees, and Lillian, I want to talk about how you and I talked about how there's not your customers and your employees ultimately end up being one big family of people. And so when we talk about emotional connection, it's not just you or your dad, it's all of your employees need to be making emotional connections with your customers. So can you talk about how that works and how you hire and train people to be able to do that?
Yeah. So there is a very thin line between customers and employees. Again, we all love music and we all love the instruments that we're selling. And so we go to the same shows, we share the same albums, we like to keep each other in each other's circles. I tend to do the same one-on-one conversations with people at festivals that I do with my staff. And so for me, it does seem like the same community, no matter whether I'm in the business or out of the business. I have 25 employees who've worked for us for over 25 years. And so they have seen hundreds of customers and they know them personally. An instrument isn't necessarily a family member, but it is a unique item, and it's often a piece of art, and I would call them always, but, and so the conversation that puts a unique instrument in someone's hand is very personal, and so all of our employees do understand that because they also feel that.
That's a really interesting point. I think someone's musical instrument probably becomes very personalized over time as they use it and learn it, right?
Yeah.
Caitlin, kind of a different question for you. I know your employees and your customers also are very much a community, but you guys really put a lot of effort into also building a community with the other businesses around you, and you're in a downtown. So can you talk about how you do that and why?
Yeah, so this is probably one of my favorite parts of my job, is that I get to go to our neighboring restaurants and plan out pairings with our beer and their menu, or every Monday morning I go down to our local bakery and I grab their weekly special, and then we get to pair it with a coffee drink and then cross-promote it that way. And it's a really interesting thing, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring business to that downtown space. And that's not something that you see a whole lot when you get into maybe a bigger city, is that community of, if somebody comes in and orders a coffee, well, then they're gonna go down to the bakery and they're gonna grab a donut, and that builds everybody's business. And it makes that customer wanna come back and have that experience again. So whether it's making those donut pairings, or going across the street to our florists and having them come in and do an arranging class in the evening for adults and things like that, it just boosts everybody up. And that's really kind of our mission as well, is to bring that community in and allow them to stay in downtown.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Denise, talk about mission. One of the things that your business does is tell them what your business does. With people who need medical care
Right.
in your community.
So we realized early on that community was going to be so important, and of course, the first few years we partnered with animal shelter. We're partners in our school district because those made sense. Those are close to us. We can get our employees. We do a lot of career training at our location for the school districts. But about 10 years ago, we had a hospitality house open in Katy called the Ballard House. And Houston's known for medical treatment, nationwide. And people were traveling there. They do free lodging for anybody that's there for medical treatment. And these stays can be 30, 60, 90 days. So we went to them and talked to them and decided through our chamber is how we met them. And we thought, let's think outside the box. What does a hospitality house have to do with a pet ranch? Not a lot. But these people that are traveling and coming in, they're already life-threatening illness. They already had to leave their house. They have a lot of expenses. So we asked, were you turning people away because they have their pets? And that's a huge expense if they had to leave their pets or get rid of their pets because they're having this problem. So we started keeping those. We take all pets from anybody that's at that hospitality house and we lodge them for free. So we do all the pet care. We'll take them to the vet for them. We will actually take them to the Ballard House to visit. And then we started taking our therapy dogs, which has become a huge program. We started with one therapy dog on one night, a week, and then realized pets are healing and it's important for people to know your pets are close by so they can come to the ranch and visit their pet. We'll take their pets to visit them. And then now we're 4 or 5 days a week, there's therapy dogs at the hospitality house. And they've housed 89,000 nights for free, I think, for the guests that are getting treatment. And then we've been doing it 10 years. I think it adds up, but it's service, and it's so important because it gets your employees volunteering, and they love it. So if your employees and your clients know that you're doing good, they want to support that.
Love that. Lillian, we're talking about community, but you guys have an interesting dynamic in that you have this local community of musicians around you, but you also have a fairly substantial global business because you sell instruments to people all over the world. So can you just talk about that mindset, like how you think about that as community?
Yeah, so there is the global music market, the national music market, and then our local music market. And we try to support at all levels. We've been shipping internationally since 1975. And to scale it back into the local, every other month there's like an arts night out in our city, and we'll host musicians to perform, or we'll host a jam so people can just come and play. And it's the kind of thing where no matter where we are, we can kind of supply the instruments or the platform for people to play together, which promotes music in all sorts of ways. It's a networking event for musicians, is to play.
Yeah, so you're thinking in both minds all the time. Caitlin, last question for you. What is something that your community suggested or supported, and ultimately you guys had to say, you know what, this seemed like a good idea, but have you had any of those kind of misfires that you've learned from?
I think this is an off-script question. Thinking about it, I think the question is, has there been failed events that you've planned? And I think
that wasn't, but yeah.
Sure. So I think, but in my mind, I don't think so. I think there's been events where we've planned and we haven't gotten the turnout that we were looking for. But it's always that question of, okay, what does the customer want? What are they looking for? And so just having that pulse constantly on our customer base. And, we sit in our tap room and we do our work, and then customers come in and we have chats with them about what they're looking for. And sometimes they throw out a really, out there idea of like, let's have, I don't know, I can't think of any examples right now, but it's always worth a try to see if something will come off the ground. And when you're planning events or trying to bring a community into your space, you might not get that huge turnout right away, but it's worth giving it 2 or 3 tries to see if is our community actually looking for this, or is it something that belongs in a different space? And so you always got to try it. You got to try.
This is why I asked you an off-script question, because I knew you were going to give a great answer. You always have to try it. That is the moral of the story. Thank you so much, very much.